There's a moment in life that often passes unnoticed. A pause, a breath, a subtle stillness that creeps in before everything begins to shift. Maybe you've felt it. That quiet space where nothing seems to happen on the outside, but something deep within you has started to stir. You can't explain it logically. You can't trace it to a specific event, but somehow life feels different. Your usual routines, once comfortable, now feel oddly empty. Conversations lose their meaning, and the things that used to excite you no longer light that spark inside. This is the threshold. Carl Jung once wrote, "Thoroughly unprepared, we take the step into the afternoon of life. We take this step with the false presupposition that our truths and ideals will serve us as hitherto." That moment of stillness you're feeling, it's not a void, it's a call, a sacred invitation to cross into a new version of yourself. But first comes silence. You might feel disconnected from others, even from your own ambitions. You may start to question whether you're on the right path, or wonder why the things you worked so hard for now seem hollow. This is not a failure, it's a signal. A deeper awareness is beginning to break through the surface. This silence is not your enemy. It is your mirror. It reflects everything that no longer fits, everything that needs to be released. And at the same time, it holds the blueprint of who you are becoming. You may notice your inner world becoming louder, thoughts circling, emotions rising. But instead of running from them, what if you simply listened? What if you made space for the discomfort? After all, growth rarely begins in comfort. It begins in the moment we pause, look inward, and say, something must change. This is where transformation truly starts. Don't underestimate this stage. In a society that rewards speed and noise, it takes courage to be still, to sit with the discomfort of not knowing. But it's here, in the quiet, that your true voice begins to rise. Jung reminds us, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. This inner awakening doesn't arrive like a thunderclap. It begins with a whisper, a vague sense that something more is waiting for you beyond the familiar. A longing for truth, for depth, for realignment. You might not have the answers yet, and that's okay. You're not meant to. This phase is not about doing. It's about becoming, about shedding the masks you didn't even realize you were wearing, about gently dissolving the roles you've outgrown. You're not broken. You're breaking open. The stillness before change is like winter soil, appearing barren, but beneath the surface, roots are stretching, expanding, preparing for what's next. You don't need to force the shift. You just need to stay present long enough to feel it unfolding. Even if no one else sees it yet, something inside you knows. You are no longer who you were. And although the future hasn't revealed itself, it's already pulling you forward in subtle, undeniable ways. This chapter of your journey isn't about action. It's about awareness. It's about reconnecting with the part of you that's always been there, quietly waiting for you to come home. So take a breath. Let the stillness hold you. Let it strip away what's no longer yours to carry. And in that space, listen. Because the life you're meant to live is already whispering your name. You've answered its call just by noticing this stillness. And that is enough. For now. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It rarely arrives in the way you expect. Intuition is quiet, delicate, often mistaken for nothing at all. But if you've ever paused, just for a moment, and felt a subtle tug in your chest, or a sensation that something isn't quite right, or is suddenly absolutely clear, then you've heard it. Your intuition. Carl Jung once wrote, "Intuition gives outlook and insight. It revels in the garden of magical possibilities." And perhaps that's exactly what you've begun to sense. That your life, though outwardly unchanged, is somehow shifting. As if new possibilities are whispering just behind the veil. You may not be able to name what's changing. There's no clear path, no certainty. And yet, something in you leans forward, attentive, like listening in the dark. That's how intuition works. Not with certainty, but with resonance. Have you ever ignored that inner nudge? That quiet knowing that told you to turn left instead of right? To say no when you said yes? To leave when you chose to stay? We all have. And yet, intuition waits. Patiently, quietly, until we're finally ready to listen. You're here now, listening. The whisper of intuition often arrives when the external noise has begun to quiet. After the stillness, after the realization that what once felt meaningful no longer fills your soul. That's when a new compass begins to activate. Not one made of logic or memory, but of presence, of inner truth. Intuition doesn't come from the mind. It rises from a deeper place, one that doesn't need justification or validation. It simply knows. But we live in a world that teaches us to doubt what we feel, to favor the rational over the instinctive, to silence that inner voice in favor of the voices around us. The result? We become strangers to ourselves, moving through life according to scripts that were never ours to begin with. Jung reminds us, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. So ask yourself now, what has your heart been quietly trying to tell you? It might come as a gut feeling, a recurring image, a phrase that echoes in your mind without reason. You may feel pulled toward something with no explanation, or repelled from something once familiar. These are not random. These are signals. This is your soul beginning to lead. But intuition requires trust. It's not always convenient. It often disrupts plans and challenges logic. But its wisdom runs deeper than reason. It knows what aligns. It knows where your path truly lies, even if you don't yet see the destination. This is a turning point. The first chapter was silence, the quiet discontent that marks the end of one way of being. Now, you've entered the listening, the noticing. You begin to feel what's true for you, not what you've been told should be true. This chapter isn't about bold leaps or grand gestures. It's about attunement, about tuning in to the subtle vibrations beneath the surface of your life. When something feels off, honor that. When something feels warm, expansive, alive, follow it. You don't have to understand where it leads. You only need the courage to follow the thread. Let yourself be guided by the dream that keeps returning, by the quiet resistance to what no longer fits, by the longing you feel when you imagine something more, something deeper, something real. This is not fantasy. This is your soul speaking in symbols, in nudges, in whispers. You are not lost. You are being led. But the map is inside you. So be still enough to hear, gentle enough to follow, brave enough to trust. The whisper is only the beginning. You've heard the whisper. You've felt the pull. And for a fleeting moment, the way forward almost seemed clear. But then, the weight returns. Doubt, fear, the quiet but relentless resistance within you. Suddenly, what felt alive now feels uncertain. What shimmered with possibility now feels distant. This is not failure. This is the path. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And what is resistance if not the pain of transformation. It is not a barrier to growth. It is growth happening in real time. When you begin to change, even in the smallest ways, you awaken the parts of yourself that are invested in staying the same. Not because they want to harm you, but because they believe they are protecting you. That inner voice that says, "You're not ready." The tension that freezes your body. The urge to retreat into distraction, old habits, familiar patterns. It's all resistance, but not the kind you must fight. Rather, the kind you must understand. You see, resistance is not your enemy. It's your guardian. It has kept you safe, hidden, protected in a world that didn't always welcome your authenticity. But now, as your true self begins to stir, the guard becomes confused. It doesn't yet know how to let go. This chapter is not about pushing through. It's about pausing, noticing, welcoming the resistance like an old friend who has always tried to help, even if their help is no longer needed. You may feel tired, unmotivated, doubtful. You may find yourself sabotaging the very path you long for. And yet, underneath it all, you are changing. Every hesitation, every internal tug of war, is evidence that something old is being questioned. Who are you without your fear? Who are you without the roles you've played to be accepted, to be safe, to be loved? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. As Jung wrote, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And yet, here you are, facing it, even when it's uncomfortable, especially then. You might notice the mind rushing to label this discomfort as failure, as weakness. But transformation is rarely graceful. Real growth often looks like standing still on the outside, while an entire storm moves within. The storm is not destruction, it is clearing. Resistance intensifies when you are close to change. It is the final test, the body and psyche clinging to the known, even as the unknown beckons. So how do you move through it? Not by forcing, not by blaming yourself, but by returning to breath, to presence, to that quiet part of you that still remembers why you began. It's okay to feel afraid. It's okay to feel lost. But keep listening. Your intuition has not left you. It's just quiet while the old noise rises louder. Not to punish you, but to be seen, understood, and finally released. There will be days when you want to give up, when the resistance feels heavier than your will to keep going. On those days, remember, growth is not linear. Awakening is not a straight path. Sometimes, the most profound shift happens in stillness, in the choice to stay with the discomfort rather than escape it. You are not going backward. You are going deeper. This is the initiation. You're peeling away the layers that no longer serve you. And yes, it hurts, because they were familiar, because they felt like home. But they were never who you truly were. The resistance you feel now is a signal, not to stop, but to soften, to trust, to continue. You are not broken. You are being reassembled. The old self resists not because it hates you, but because it fears it will be left behind. And in a way, it will, but only because something more whole is coming alive. So pause, breathe, feel, and walk on, even if only one small step at a time. The next chapter is not lighter, but it is freer. There comes a moment on every path of awakening when the past no longer fits. Not because it was wrong, not because it was meaningless, but because you are no longer the same. Dear listener, you've arrived at that threshold. You've stood long enough in the doorway between who you were and who you are becoming. And now, the choice is before you. Not to erase the past, but to release its grip. Carl Jung wrote, We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. You don't break with the past by rejecting it. You break with it by honoring it and still choosing to move forward. Your old life, your roles, your masks, your wounds once served a purpose. They helped you survive, belong, feel safe. And yet now you can feel it, the weight of these old skins, the conversations you no longer wish to have, the places that drain your spirit, the habits that once comforted you, but now only numb. They no longer align with the version of you that is emerging. And still, it's not easy to let go. This chapter is not a fiery rebellion. It's a quiet mourning, a gentle untangling from identities and attachments that have shaped you for so long, they almost felt permanent. But nothing in the psyche is permanent, only deeply familiar. This familiarity is what makes the past seductive. Even your pain had a rhythm. Even your suffering had structure. In a world of uncertainty, the known, even when it hurts, can feel safer than freedom. You may feel guilt rise in. Guilt for leaving behind people who don't understand your path. Guilt for no longer playing the roles expected of you. Guilt for choosing yourself. Let it rise. Let it pass. Let it teach you. Because breaking with the past is not abandonment. It is integration. You are not burning bridges. You are building a new road that begins with self-respect. Let me ask you this. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when you are no longer performing, pleasing, proving? That version of you is waiting, just beyond the fear of being misunderstood, unloved, alone. But hear this truth. The version of you that honors your soul will never be truly alone, because the more authentic you become, the more life will align with your essence. Not overnight, but eventually, inevitably. And yes, there may be a void. The space between the old and the new. Between who you no longer are and who you are not yet. This space is sacred. Don't rush to fill it. Don't try to numb it. Let it breathe. In this silence, you will hear your true voice more clearly. In this stillness, you will reclaim your energy from the people, patterns, and promises that no longer resonate. Jung reminds us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is the chapter where fate is rewritten, not by force, but by becoming aware. Look around your inner world. What are you still clinging to out of fear? What stories have you outgrown but still retell? What dreams were never yours to begin with? Let them fall. It may feel like loss, but it is really liberation. You are shedding the roles that were never truly you. And what remains is something raw, honest, powerful. So grieve if you must. Let the tears come. Let the nostalgia wash through you. And then, breathe into the space that opens. This is the cost of awakening. The past cannot come with you. Not in its old form, but its lessons can. Its strength can. Its beauty, yes, even in its pain can. You are not erasing your story. You are reclaiming authorship. You are closing a chapter not out of bitterness, but with gratitude. The old self bows. The new self rises. Not all will understand your shift. Some will call it selfish. Others will feel threatened. But this is not your burden to carry. Your soul was never meant to remain small to make others comfortable. So take one last look behind, not with regret, but with reverence. Then face forward. You're not just walking away from something. You're walking towards someone. Yourself. Can you feel it? The shift beneath your skin. The stirring of something deeper than thought, older than words. It's not a storm. It's not a scream. It is the quiet arrival of your own power. Not the kind of power that dominates, performs, or seeks validation, but the power that comes when you remember who you are. Carl Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." You've paid the price of release. You've grieved what needed to fall away. And now, in the clearing, you stand before something sacred, your own awakened force. Don't rush it. Just listen. It doesn't arrive like a lightning strike. It hums at first. Faint, warm, steady. The soft voice beneath your conditioning, the subtle strength in your spine, the knowing in your gut that needs no permission. Dear listener, this power has always lived inside you. You didn't earn it. You didn't create it. You remembered it. It is the part of you untouched by praise or rejection, beyond identity or role. It is the source, not the shell. You may be surprised at how natural it feels, this power that is not performance. There's no need to prove anything. There's no mask to hold in place. What flows now is not control, but presence. You speak less, but your words carry weight. You move slower, but each step lands with intention. You act not from impulse, but from clarity. And it's not about being fearless. You still feel fear, but it no longer decides for you. This is where something extraordinary begins to happen. Boundaries form without guilt. Truths are spoken without apology. Choices are made not to avoid conflict, but to align with integrity. And with every moment you honor this power, it grows, not louder, but deeper. In this chapter, you no longer seek external signs to validate your path. You don't ask the world for permission to be yourself. You simply walk as if you already belong, because you do. This is not arrogance, it's alignment. And yes, it may confuse others. You may seem different, too quiet, too clear, too unshakable. But those who are meant to walk beside you will recognize the energy. Not because you chase them, but because your authenticity calls them. Let this be a reminder. Awakened power does not isolate, it magnetizes. It does not demand attention, it draws resonance. And now, dear soul, you are beginning to live in that current. There will be days when you falter, moments when old habits whisper, times when the weight of the world tries to pull you back into doubt. But the difference now is this. You remember how to return, to breathe, to stillness, to yourself. Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart." Power is not in the vision alone, but in the heart that holds it. And now, you are ready to hold more than before. This is the flow. You stop trying to be powerful, and instead, you become a vessel for it. You let it move through your voice, your choices, your silence. And with each passing day, you build a new rhythm. A life rooted not in urgency, but in truth. Not in reaction, but in creation. There is no final form, only deepening. You begin to recognize this energy in others too. A stranger's gaze, a gentle word, a fierce compassion. Power no longer looks like dominance. It looks like presence, like peace, like grace under fire. And in this recognition, a new community begins to form, not always near you, but always within reach. Souls who've walked their own fires and now carry their light without need to explain. You are one of them now. And as your power flows more freely, so does your purpose. You're no longer chasing meaning, you're embodying it. Not with noise, but with alignment. Not with pressure, but with peace. So stand here for a moment. Feel the ground beneath you, the breath within you, the current moving through you. This is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of living it. You are not who you were. You are who you've remembered to be. You've come far, not across miles, but through layers of identity, resistance, forgetting and remembering. And now, you stand at the edge of something quiet and immense. It doesn't look like a victory parade. No fireworks, no applause. It feels like breath, like spaciousness, like standing in a room where the walls no longer press in. Carl Jung once said, "We cannot change anything unless we accept it." But now, dear listener, you've done more than accept. You've transformed. This new self isn't a character you created. It's the one you uncovered when the old masks fell away. And with it, a new world comes into view. Not because the external has changed, but because you have. You see differently now. Where once you looked for signs and permission, now you follow resonance. Where once you feared silence, now you trust it. Where once you clung to certainty, now you rest in presence. This is the real gift. Not a life without challenge, but a self that meets challenge from wholeness. You may notice it in the small things first. The way you pause before reacting. The way you honor your boundaries without needing a reason. The way you meet others not with armor, but with clarity. And slowly, a new rhythm builds. One where you no longer betray yourself to be liked. One where success is redefined, not as status, but as alignment. This new self isn't perfect. That was never the goal. It's real, which means it can hold sorrow without drowning, hold joy without clinging, hold change without collapsing. And that, dear soul, is power. You begin to realize your reality shifts not when the world finally gives you what you wanted, but when you no longer depend on it to feel whole. You've built that wholeness inside. This chapter is not a conclusion. It's a homecoming to the parts of you that once whispered and now sing, to the choices you once feared and now welcome, to the freedom that comes when you live without pretending. You are not the seeker anymore. You are the space where seeking ends. Jung wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." And now you live from that place of awakening, not as a state, but as a practice. You return to yourself again and again, in each breath, each pause, each moment of presence. And the world responds, not always with ease, but with reflection. You begin to attract what resonates with your truth, not because you chase it, but because you are it. This is how a new reality forms, not through effort, but through embodiment. And perhaps the most sacred realization is this: you are enough. Not one day, not when you've done more, not if others agree. Now already, right here. So breathe into this knowing. Let it settle in your chest. Let it fill your limbs. Let it echo in your choices. You've walked through fire, not to become someone else, but to reclaim who you've always been. Now, your task is simpler than ever: to live from this place, to show up, to speak true, to love wisely, and yes, to continue. Because awakening is not a destination. It's a way of being, a way of seeing, a way of remembering moment by moment that you are whole. The self you've met, this new self, isn't new at all. It's simply the version of you that no longer asks for permission to exist. So walk gently, live honestly, and know this: you are not alone. Not now, not ever. Welcome home. And if this journey spoke to something in you, some quiet place that remembers who you are, then stay close. There is more ahead. Not louder, but deeper. If you felt seen here, heard here, gently consider subscribing. This space is made for you. And when you're ready, return. The next chapter waits in silence, patient as the soul. See you soon.